Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the entire congregation, I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Shenandoah Valley. I am Alvin Viger, your worship associate for today's service. We wish to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Shawnee and Manahoe tribes, who lived in this area prior to the arrival of European settlers, who then took the land for their own. We come together each Sunday morning as a community of seekers of what is important in our lives, seekers of understanding in the face of uncertainty and loss, seekers of forgiveness for our shortcomings, seekers of gratitude for the unexpected gifts we receive from all around us. We gather in awe of the beauty of nature and the mysteries of the universe. But most importantly, we come together as seekers of a community of love and empowerment, celebrating our search for truth and meaning in our daily lives. Now, as Taylor, Preston, and Jay, a little bit of nepotism because that's my husband and our two kids, come forward to light the chalice, let us say together here and from our homes the words for lighting our chalice. We won't force you, Preston. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, to share. And I invite you to join with us as we say our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is sacrament. To dwell together in peace, seek the truth in freedom, and to help our neighbor. To these ends, we covenant one with another. Please stand in body or spirit as we sing number 309, Earth is Our Homeland. We will sing all 4 verses in the gray hymnal. right. The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. Once there was a tree, and she loved a little boy. You could see that little foot coming into the page. And every day the boy would come, and he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk and swing from her branches. There's his little feet up there in the corner. And eat apples. And they would play hide and go seek. And when he was tired, he would sleep in her shade. And the boy loved the tree very much, and the tree was happy. But time went by. If you notice, this little boy is growing up. Even carved some initials into the tree trunk, probably not the best. And the boy grew older. And the tree was often alone. Then one day the boy came to the tree, and the tree said, "Come, boy, come and climb up my trunk and swing from my branches, and eat apples and play in my shade, and be happy." "I am too big to climb and play," said the boy. "I want to buy things and have fun. I want some money. Can you give me some money?" "I'm sorry," said the tree, "but I have no money. I have only leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money and you will be happy." And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered her apples and carried them away. And the tree was happy. But for the boy stayed away for a long time, and the tree was sad. And then one day the boy came back, and the tree shook with joy, and she said, "Come, boy, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and be happy." "I am too busy to climb trees," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm," he said. "I want a wife, and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house?" "I have no house," said the tree. "The forest is my house, but you may cut off my branches and build a tree. Then you will be happy." To build a house, yes. And so the boy cut off her branches and carried them away to build his house. And the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time. And when he came back, the tree was so happy she could hardly speak. "Come, boy," she whispered, "come and play." "I am too old and sad to play," said the boy. "I want a boat that will take me far away from here. Can you give me a boat?" "Cut down my trunk and make a boat," said the tree. "Then you can sail away and be happy." And so the boy cut down the trunk. It is sad, my love. The boy cut down her trunk and made a boat and sailed away. And the tree was happy, but not really. And after a long time, the boy came back again. "I am sorry, boy," said the tree, "but I have nothing left to give you. My apples are gone. My teeth are too weak for apples," said the boy. "My branches are gone," said the tree. "You cannot swing on them." "I am too old to swing on branches," said the boy. "My trunk is gone," said the tree. "You cannot climb." "I am too tired to climb," said the boy. "I am sorry," sighed the tree. "I wish that I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I am just an old stump. I am sorry." "I don't need very much now," said the boy, "just a quiet place to sit and rest. I am very tired." "Well," said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could, "well, an old stump is good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down and rest. And the boy did. And the tree was happy. The end. We will now sing the kids away to Katie, to the classrooms. I've asked Sharon to read the melody so that we can sing with the melody. Go now. So I have a reading for reflection from the chapter Love in the Lifting Our Voices book. Time has come, we must defend our dream, proclaim this as what is best in us. Where would we be without our variant love? The world would shrivel, die without surprise. Boredom would be the sole master of space, and summer joys would perish under constant snow. By Steve Abbott. Our guest speaker for today is Jim Smith. James Lowell Smith, born in Washington, D.C., spent most of his life in Frederick County and Winchester, Virginia. He served 4 years in active duty for the U.S. Coast Guard and received degrees from Lord Fairfax Community College and Shepherd College. Jim worked for over 20 years with the city of Winchester. As a superintendent of parks, he helped establish the Abrams Creek Wetlands Preserve and Shawnee Springs Parks. Jim is a proud member of the Northern Shenandoah Valley Audubon Society for 49 years. He worked as a director and a leader of nature camps and over 100 nature talks and walks that continue today. Jim and his wife, Eleanor, are certified tree farmers in West Virginia and currently volunteer to lead walks and manage the Audubon Arboretum in Jim Barnett Park that was started in 2020. Welcome, Jim, up to the podium.
Well, good morning. It's nice to see so many friends and neighbors here and so many smiling faces. It's nice to be back. I got to speak here and talk with you all some years ago, and I think I talked about birds and trees at that time. So it's good to be back. I'll have to tell you straight off that I'm not a biologist or a botanist or a dendrologist, not a writer or speaker, but I'm someone who grew up loving the outdoors. And I love to be in nature and learned early on that nature is a part of God's creation. And I enjoy sharing that with others. And so I'm happy to talk to you about trees because some of my best friends are trees. And they provide benefits that are just vast and so too numerous to mention here. But of course, we all know, I think, that they provide oxygen and food and soil and air quality and flooding control and temperature modifications, influences weather, provides medical testing materials and medicines, building supplies from toothpicks to houses. And our trees decorate our homes, our yards, our communities, and just seeing the mountains and valleys and forests and woodlands is a cherished and healthy experience for all of us. But trees are disappearing for some reason. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little while. If we're talking about the benefit of oxygen and food, we talk about a system that trees provide called photosynthesis. You may have heard of photosynthesis, and simply it's what it is a green leaf will, the chlorophyll, the green pigment in that leaf will absorb sunlight and mix with water and carbon dioxide in the leaf already And the reaction from that photochemical process is it gives out oxygen and creates starch and sugar, food that provides nutrition for all of life, including us. So I think you all know that trees above ground, what a nice view from right here, looking out at a cottonwood and a walnut, and then you on both sides, you have some beautiful trees planted around the church. And Eleanor and I got to walk the nature trail of yours through the woods a couple weeks ago. That was wonderful to see. And I'm really glad that you all are very conscientious helping the trees. The above ground trees, what we see is what we call the canopy. And it's the green leaves and the branches and the stems, and some trees are flowering trees, and some trees have fruit, and we all like that. And the above grounds provide a lot of interactions with the biotic and abiotic world. And but what we often forget is underground, the roots continue to provide food and nutrition for so many things, support for the above ground part of the tree. But underground, the interactions with the roots that we see with water and soil and fungus and many insects and invertebrates continues. We see the largest roots, but the very small roots, some of it is called mycelium. And that mycelium is so small that we can't see it quite often. And they're very similar to our nerve pathways in our own body. They connect and do a lot of work. So underground, this is all going on. And those neural pathways allow a tree to communicate with the community of neighbors, other trees, particularly their own offspring. Many small trees grow under the big trees, the mother trees. So those communications continue, and it's very similar the way we communicate with our offspring and our loved ones, our friends. So we have a lot in common with trees, and we are connected to them, and we need trees. And so what can we do to help trees? Well, we can get to know them a little better. As I said, the above ground trees, what we notice, what we most often come in contact with is what we see, and we're used to seeing a nice green canopy. But what happens if the tree dies and there's just holes in the trees and it looks scraggly and so forth? Well, the tree is still working, particularly underground. A lot of times very active underground, but above ground, what has happened is those tree cavities and holes are home to many insects and very many other living creatures, particularly birds. Cavity nesting birds are familiar to a lot of you, woodpeckers. But in essence, what I wanted to share with you is that our eastern bluebird back in the 1970s, their numbers were dramatically declining for a number of reasons, of course, because of air pollution and so forth. But the bluebirds were competing with introduced species like European starlings and house sparrows, and they were looking for nesting sites because the starlings would nest in cavities and the bluebirds wouldn't be able to get in there. So back in the late 1970s and early 80s, members of the Northern Shenandoah Valley Audubon Society and members of this church started building bluebird boxes. And we put out, I think Colonel Sam Patton and his wife Jean Patton were members here. Some of you might remember them. And they started maybe 9 or 10 bluebird boxes and put them down at Blandy Farm. And today, the Audubon is still monitoring boxes that we have constructed and put up. There's 136 bird boxes at Blandy. If you haven't gone to Blandy Farm, please do. It's our state arboretum. It's a wonderful place. But Audubon not only manages the 136 boxes that are at Blandy, we also have boxes at the 3 state parks that we're lucky to call ours. Sky Meadows, Andy Guest, Shenandoah River State Park, and the new state park, Seven Bends down at Woodstock. Wonderful places. We have bluebird boxes there. We also have bluebird boxes at Belle Grove, a couple local other parks. In total, we have over 300 bluebird boxes. And today, we're happy to say that bluebird numbers have rebounded, but they're not out of the woods yet, so to speak. But we need to plant, not only put up boxes, but also plant more trees for the other birds that don't need cavities, tree cavities. So some years ago, and not 2020, it was 2000, we started, Eller and I and some friends started the Audubon Arboretum in Jim Barnett Park on Pleasant Valley Road. And the reason we started that is because 11 acres of land became available through an exchange with Shenandoah University, the city property on Pleasant Valley Road, became available, and they cut all the trees down, and the scraggly trees, they didn't think they were worth much, but I don't think that's really thing to consider. So they cut them down, and so they were thinking about what can we do with this vacant lot? Open space, scary words. Open space, it gives you the idea that it's open space, it needs to be something put in there. And quite often, in there, something that makes money. So shopping malls, parking lots, sidewalks, impervious materials, not good for trees. Trees can't grow there. So we thought that maybe we could plant some there, 11 acres, and today we have about over 100 trees representing over 50 species. And it's a place that's still growing. And we like to have support for the trees that we have there. It's a great continuing cooperative effort with the Audubon Society. It's the city of Winchester, many businesses and civic organizations, and it's still growing. And we have very good expectations for that to continue since there's no strip mall there now, shopping mall there. So we're very happy about that. Now, in my mind, we can never have enough trees. And it's a big deal. How big is it? Let's talk about some of the big trees, okay? In our area, one of our biggest trees is a sycamore. You might be familiar with it. Some people call it the ghost tree. It has whitish bark, and it grows along waterways and along our rivers. And years ago, when the early settlers came here, pioneers, they didn't have cabins or anything. I understand that they stayed in holes underneath the sycamore trees that were big enough for a husband and wife and a couple children to stay in while they were building their cabins under sycamores. And the sycamores at that time were much bigger, much taller, bigger around. So they could go in there and utilize the trees for that reason. But they weren't the biggest around. They aren't the biggest in the world or in the United States. So what is our biggest trees? All right. Well, I'd say, if I could go up, I'm almost at 6 arm span. I connect hand, Alvin, that would be a pretty. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I walked away from here. But what I want to do is ask for a volunteer. And I want them to help me. There you go. How nice. This is the diameter of the largest tree that's measured right there. Okay, hold it. This is the diameter of the largest tree. So the other way, so almost the full interior of the church would be the interior of the largest tree. All right, thank you, sir.
How many feet is 39 inches?
I'm sorry, not 39 inches, 39 feet. 39, 39 feet. Did I say inches? Okay, so 39 feet. So that's a big tree. And it's a cypress tree called the Montezuma cypress. It's in Mexico, Oaxaca, Mexico. I'll go back here now. And if you get a chance when you go home, Google that, and it's some interesting photos. So what about the tallest tree? As I said, some of our sycamores got to be 100, 125, 150 feet high. The highest tree that's living today, the tallest tree, is 380 feet. Now, the height of this church is, what do you think, 30, 40 feet? Any estimates? So if that's 30, 40, 38, say average 38 feet, we would need to stack 10 of these churches on top of one another to get to the height of that tallest tree. And that tallest tree is, you might have heard, coast redwood, and its name is Hyperion. And it's in the Redwood National Park in California. The highest ever recorded was 466 feet tall. And it too, well, it was in the same area, but it was a Douglas fir. And the reason why they know exactly how tall it was is because they cut it down in 1897. That's what we did in the hundreds, cut down. And when they cut it down, then they could measure it all out all the way. And it was 466 feet tall. So there we've got the height and the depth of the trees. You might like to know, what's the oldest tree? Its name is Methuselah. And in the Bible, Methuselah was 969 years old. The tree was a lot older than. And this tree is still living. And it is a bristlecone pine in Inyo, California. And it's still alive. And it's 4,855 years old. The tree that's the tallest, Hyperion, is just 1,000 years old. So trees are the giants of the plant world. We can't live without them. Religious and spiritual significance. Trees were mentioned in the Bible numerous times, and you might know some of the references. Olive trees, cedar trees, oak trees, palm trees, sycamore, myrtle, and figs, a lot of other trees. You might recall that the cedars of Lebanon was supposedly what King Solomon built his palaces with. And at Blandy Farm, you could go to the Cedars of Lebanon alley, see the actual trees, cedars of Lebanon. I'd recommend that you could do that. In the Garden of Eden, Genesis, in the Garden of Eden, God told Adam he could eat the tree of life, but God forbid Adam to eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We know the rest of the story. In India, the temples of Lord Shiva are surrounded by 5 spiritual trees: Amala, Banyan, Bel, Neem, and Papao. In Sri Lanka, the Bodhi tree is where Buddha was reported to have attained enlightenment. That was 300 or 400 years ago, before Jesus was. Native Americans in the Pacific Northwest utilized the western red cedar to make shelters, boats, fishing and hunting gear, and totem poles. These cedars can grow to 280 feet tall and live for 1,000 years. They call their trees the tree of life. So trees are important to us. We need them to live. They give us much more than we give them. I think we could give them more. We could give them more attention and appreciation. And I think the more trees, the better. You don't see a realtor who wants to sell a house with no trees around it. Everybody has their motivations. When we try to identify a tree, we use the shape of the leaves, the flowers, if it's a flowering tree. We look at the cones, pine tree or evergreen, and the bark structure, whether it's deciduous or not. Deciduous tree, that the leaves drop and fall in the winter. We look for bark color, and so those are things that we can look at to help ID a tree, the way the leaves are constructed and so forth. Thank you, Vanna White. I got some trees, and what I give nature walks, these are trees that are often have questions. See that tree and go, what is that? I try to help them identify it. And some of these trees you'll recognize because you have them around your house. This is a beautiful broadleaf tree. This is the fruit or a seed pod on it. And this is a southern magnolia. And this leaf, it looks like it would be a deciduous tree, but it doesn't. It's an evergreen. Magnolias are evergreen. And it has, the top is very waxy and shiny to help it retain moisture in the winter time. And the back of it is like a leathery brown material leaf. And these get very big, beautiful ornamental tree, and it's native. I recommend highly you plant native trees. Native trees are what the insects and other things that interact with the trees and plants need. And so I'm going to put all this in the lobby for you to look at a little closer later on. So I'll put this in. Another tree that I'm often asked about is this right here, and you might be familiar with it, this long green bean-like thing, look like a green bean on steroids. But this is a catalpa tree. It's a native tree, and the beans is actually a seed pod, and it turns brown later in the year. So it really grabs your attention. This is how the leaves are ovate. They get this big or a little bigger. Great shade tree for your yard, catalpa. This is a nice tree for naturalists because when you're walking along, you give people an opportunity to taste the tree. This is sassafras. As I said, as you go along, you can use the shape of the tree, of the leaf, as an idea of what it might be. This has a very interesting leaf shape. It can be called glove or hand or a mitten. or shaped like this, the three like your hand. But the young leaves can be whole like this. And so this is sassafras. Now, you can taste it if you like, but some people don't like it and they might have a reaction to it. So I'd be cautious of anything you find outdoors trying to taste it and eat it and sample it. Ash tree. This one, I bet you everybody in here knows this one by now. If you go to the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley, you know this tree. Okay. This is an Osage orange. And this is the fruit, and it's going to get twice that size or more. They get quite large. It's also called hedge apple because it has thorns on it, and it grows very in big clumps. And you can plant them on a boundary or keep livestock in. It grows so close and it's thorny, it creates its own barrier. You can't walk through it. So they called it a hedge apple. Maclora primifera. Some people inside the round, what do they call it? Well, it's a seed case, some type. It's not a poem, it's something else. But anyway, globulate, what it is. And it has a milky substance, a latex substance. And if it breaks and you get it on your skin, some people break out like poison ivy. Okay. I've also heard that you can cut these in half and put them under your sink or wherever it's moisture in your home to away cockroaches. Not edible. So when you're collecting or thinking about your trees, my recommendation is pick a tree that talks to you, that speaks to you. What do you like about that tree? Does it have a beautiful flower? Have good shade? Have a good smell? Select something that you like that you can nurture. And I also recommend that you name your tree. Now, we have trees in our backyard, and a big locust tree that's black locust tree that's been there since before the house was built. It's got real heavy bark on it, so I call him Barkley. We also have a tree on the other side of the house that we share with a neighbor, and it is an American holly. I at first called it Buddy, after Buddy Holly. But I found out that hollies are dioecious, means that one tree is a female tree, another tree is a male tree. Many trees have both sexes, flowers, on the same tree. But the dioecious trees, male and female. So I call Buddy just holly. But I recommend that you call your trees by a name. When people are foresters or cutting trees and so forth, it's more difficult to cut a tree if it has a name. You can identify with it. So, due to our continued environmental degradation and our belief that we have a right to everything that gets in our way or that we don't understand, it's leading to a lot of problems in our environment, nature. And we can't live without a good environment, a good, healthy environment, because it all relates to our most elemental needs. Air, water, shelter, food. So with that, I would ask you to continue your evident, considerate and loving stewardship for nature. And this is from a friend of mine. She's 89 years old and she's a conservationist. And she told me this. She said, "You can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in a seed." Thank you.
We will now gratefully receive an offering to sustain this self-supporting church and its ministries within and beyond our walls. So, small anecdotal story. My family and I moved out to the city of Winchester 2 years ago, and one of the first things that I did was contact the city of Winchester and ask the arborist there if they could plant trees on our along our sidewalk. And the city of Winchester does it for free, and we got a redbud, 3 redbuds, and a serviceberry planted in front of our house. So if you are in the city of Winchester, and if you want to get more involved and get trees onto your property, please look into that, because it's something that is there for you as a service. As for our closing words by poet May Sarton, I would like to believe when I die that I have given myself away like a tree that sows every spring and never counts the loss. Because it is not loss, it is adding to future life. It is the tree's way of being, strongly rooted, perhaps, but spilling out its treasure on the wind. Please stand in body or spirit as we sing number 309, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. We will sing 301, 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. We will sing all 5 verses, the gray hymnal. may be seated. Now, as Jay and Preston comes forward, let us all say together here and from our homes the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts till we meet again.